Okay. So, we've had a lot of very interesting movies we've tackled this month so far. We've got Controversial, we talked about Cabins in the Woods, and now we're going to do another mega. This probably should have been...
You got the devil.
Yeah, well, we started out with the devil, and you never know, we might be revisiting the devil next week to end the horror theme, given the fact of what day it is. It makes perfect sense we'd go that route. But at any rate, this has been an idea we've had for a while, and not necessarily to this extent. We're going to be doing just the first of each movie, and then it was kind of like, hey, let's do Freddy vs. Jason again. Let's take the entire franchise and pit them against the other one to see which one's better. So, AJ decided he wanted to watch every single one of these movies.
I had already seen them.
Again, just to make sure to refresh your mind. So, we could do this versus today. So, we're going to find out what happens when Child's Play battles Leprechaun. AJ, take it away.
It may have just been curiosity to see how it would turn out if I tried reviewing the Leprechaun sequels. And I just took the advantage while I had it. Yeah, I think this pretty much speaks for itself. It's the shorter horror icons.
Yes.
The ones that are even shorter than, say, The Children. Like something that may or may not happen soon.
Yes.
So I almost just outright said it, that's why I stumbled there for a second, but as if you don't know.
Next week.
Yes, I basically grew up on the Child's Play franchise, more or less. And pretty much Leprechaun also. That was kind of one of those cases where I basically got all the Child's Play movies, but Leprechaun was one of those series where we kept going back to the video store for each one. And it kind of became like a thing that way. But we're going to start with Child's Play, which is the much more critically acclaimed bunch. Well, this one, anyway. And obviously, it begins in a way that you would not think a movie like this might begin, and that is Prince Humperdinck chasing Academy Award nominee Brad Dourif through the streets, shooting at each other, is somehow, some way going to turn into a horror movie about a killer doll. Brad Dourif with this really freaky looking long hair. And like the only time until the very end of the series that we see him in his actual face. When we learn of his voodoo background that he puts himself inside the doll, which he apparently, interestingly enough, was not very... Charles Lee Ray didn't exactly necessarily believe in all the voodoo stuff at the time. He kind of thought the witch doctor was full of shit. It was basically just a, well, I'm about to die, let's see if this works scenario. And sure enough, that's basically how the Chucky doll was born. And our characters who are eventually terrorized by him are a single mother and her son. Karen, I think is her name, and Andy. Karen, who is played by Catherine Hicks, who was on, that was Seventh Heaven, wasn't it?
I believe so.
And you might know from the fourth Star Trek movie. Is that very hard-working single mother that she works really hard and she takes crap from her uptight boss, but she can still never really quite manage to give Andy everything that he desires. Even on his birthday, she kind of... I don't know, I always think this is kind of crappy. I mean, I know we all get clothes, but I mean, she basically takes the shape of a good guy doll box and puts jeans in it. I don't know. She's a great mother, but that seemed pretty cruel.
I've done that before. Like, haven't you got presents like that before?
Usually as a joke, but...
Yes.
She obviously could not afford a good guy doll at the time.
Correct.
So she got him the toys that go with the good guy doll, but she couldn't afford the good guy doll. And she put his fucking jeans in a box shaped like the good guy doll.
So buying Booster instead of Turbo Man.
Yeah. Nobody likes you, Booster. And the thing that's interesting to me about this movie is that it takes a very ridiculous concept a serial killer uses voodoo to possess a doll and just continues his killing spree to go out and against the ones that like Eddie Caputo, mainly the guy that abandoned him, and then obviously Chris Sarandon, the cop that killed him, and maybe some more bodies along the way, including the witch doctor himself. It's ridiculous. It's a really ridiculous concept. But I think the reason most people took to this movie, and believe it or not, it was critically acclaimed, is the fact that it takes this ridiculous concept and plays it up as such a serious thriller. Like, it really... this one... Like, obviously all the self-aware stuff, and when it practically became a parody itself later in the series happened. But this one takes itself really seriously. And I think it also helps that we don't really see the Chucky doll that much in this one. At least until, like, the last half hour or so. Because I always had this thing about this movie that I always found really intriguing, which there's plenty of things that will contradict this, but just thinking about it from a very wide perspective, what I really like about this movie is for a long time, it'd probably be very easy to edit in a way that makes it look like Andy's the killer. Because for a long time they shrouded Chucky's face in mystery. We only see him, like, really vaguely in backgrounds, where he just looks like a short person. There's the point in time where Sarandon thinks it might be him, when he checks his shoes to see if the flower's on it. And it very much hides... Like, we all know it's a killer doll, but the movie tries to hide that fact for a while. But, I mean, you know, there are the scenes, like, when the news is on and we see Chucky's head turn towards it, is a very obvious clue, and... When he blows up the house, we see, obviously, the doll's hand turn the knob on the oven. But it's always been interesting to me just how much they try to hide his face for a while, even though we know he's a killer doll. And, like, if you were to edit it that way, it would be a surprise that Andy wasn't lying and it actually is Chucky. And our first reveal of that is when Karen threatens to throw him in the fire and he comes to life. With those amazing puppetry effects. The effects in this movie are really good, especially for 1988. Whenever Chucky's face moves and the different expressions he can have with his face, it's really, really impressive. There are scenes, obviously, where we see him from a distance, and it's very clearly, like, either a little person or a child in the getup. But when it's obviously the puppet, the effects are really, really good. And very detailed. And another thing that I do like is that the fact that he could be a killer doll, or obviously he is a killer doll, isn't the only creepy thing in the movie. Because, like I said, they kind of build it up to where maybe if you absolutely have no idea what you're in store for, you might think it's something else that's doing all this. And then there are scenes like when she goes to see the homeless guy that sold it to her. That whole scene where she goes into, like, this homeless underworld, that by itself is really creepy and has nothing to do with that. And just in general, when they're looking into Charles Lee Ray's background, and we go to, like, his, you know, apartment and all that, and it looks like a place the Droogs from A Clockwork Orange would hang out. It's really, really creepy. And none of that has to do with a killer doll killing people. That's just stuff that's already there before this even happened. Because we do forget, even though he is a killer doll, he's also somebody that was once a very, very real serial killer. So I love the realism they add to it, this fictional serial killer, by doing the three names thing. Like, Charles Lee Ray actually sounds like it would be the name of a real-life serial killer.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there are the score kind of really adds to that creepiness too. It's kind of the one where it and Bride of Chucky have really good scores that go with the movie really well, that are actually worth mentioning. And then there is some stuff that probably doesn't work or seems a little cheesy in retrospect. Like the scene where he kills Maggie, when he hits her in the face with the little hammer. It's apparently a real hammer, it just is small. And it eventually leads to her dropping out of the window and to her death. But obviously the thing is that Chucky kind of hits her, and I guess the force, amidst with her trying to run away and not sure where she is, causes her to fall out the window. But it's so clearly obvious when you see it that this is a stunt person deliberately throwing themselves through a window. That takes a little bit of the effect away from that first kill. There's the very poorly conceived line about when Chucky is excited when the witch doctor tells him that he can put his soul into the first person he told his secret to. And he's like, but that's a 6-year-old boy. That's great. I'm going to be 6 years old again. And then just as he's leaving, his little outro is, I got a date with a 6-year-old boy. It's I don't believe that connotation is supposed to be there. I think that's just poor writing.
Poor writing.
That's poor, not well thought out writing.
It was the late 80s, so yeah, that wouldn't have been the case.
And it's one of those movies where the ending is filled of people being chased and just falling down over nothing. It's one of those. It very, very much took they took some Friday the 13th pills before they took part in this chase. There is a moment in this one where it's a comedic moment, and you can kind of tell, even though the movie tends to take itself quite seriously, this is the moment where the rest of the creators of it kind of saw... I mean, it's the same writer through the whole series, believe it or not. But it's where maybe studios kind of got the idea to take the humorous aspect and run with a little bit, and that's the moment when... the doll's just sitting in the elevator, and then the old woman leaves, and as she leaves, she says, "Ugly doll." And as the elevator goes up, we can hear him say, "Fuck you." And it's like one of the only comedic moments in the movie, really. And you can kind of tell that's kind of the moment where they were like, Chucky should be more like that. Let's make him do that a lot in the sequels. But yeah, for the most part, it actually is like a really effective thriller that just happens to have a killer doll in it. That we really don't see too much. Obviously, once you do start seeing him, most of the time in the rest of the movies, it kind of takes away that same feeling. I think that has a lot to do with how it felt like the tone of the series changed so drastically after this one. But yeah, there's definitely some creepiness to it. The performances are good. The effects are really, really good. And it's for sure, the climax is really good too. Even though the witch doctor went through all the trouble to say shoot him in the heart, and it takes like the whole climax for them to actually do that. Or she just has really bad aim. That could be it too. I doubt she had held a gun before. I mean, look at her. So yes. So going on to our next one, which is shock surprise, called Child's Play 2. We weren't going into different titles yet at this point. We got another movie to go through before we get to that point. And this one, like I say, the movie kind of started to get in it's a bit more of a lighter phase. Like it didn't take itself as seriously after that one. This one's still pretty dark. Obviously, the opening credit sequence is really cool, and it picks up where there's something the Chucky movies do really well that a lot of horror franchises tend to ignore or really, really jump the shark in doing, and that's when usually the opening credit scene of every new movie shows us how Chucky is resurrected. And in this particular case, how he was completely burned down and then shot to pieces. The opening credit scene of the sequel is all the burn and stuff being scraped off of him, and we completely see him reassembled by a toy factory. And it's a really cool and creepy opening. And of course now, I guess they weren't going to pay Catherine Hicks enough, or she didn't want to come back, because Karen is in psychiatric care now, and she is for the remainder of the series. The next time we see her, she's in a picture in Curse of Chucky. And she's in a picture frame in this too, but and now Andy is with foster parents. And if you've ever seen a movie in your life, you know that foster parents are bad, and foster parents are always bad. Is there any movie ever that glorifies foster parents, or at least makes them look at least okay?
Not that I can think of.
We just saw a movie this week that makes foster parents look evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, obviously, they're only here so that they can be ill-fated. Well, obviously, the mom is nice, who is the woman from American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
And obviously she's nice, but it's always the dad that's super overbearing. But eventually, we're going to get to the time to where they both get sick of Andy's shit because we're rehashing that whole thing. What was the big killer doll aspect of the first movie? No one believes there's a killer doll. So what is the second one going to be all about? There's a brand new batch of people to not believe there's a killer doll. As Andy continues to get terrorized with his... Would you call her a foster sister? Because she's also going from place to place, but he's also going from place to place. But temporarily, they're in the same house. So are foster siblings a thing? Is that like a
If not,
term?
then that's probably the closest thing you can come up with.
And she ends up basically being the hero with him in this. Though, to be honest, I don't recall her being mentioned in the rest of the series after this movie. She probably ran away, because that was basically her plan anyway. And it's like I said, through all of the series, it's the same writer and the same producer. So it seems like we should be kind of going in a direction here that's very similar. It is very comforting when you see that, especially in a big franchise, especially when it's through the whole franchise. But as we see, though, maybe that doesn't always stick necessarily, because this is. Well, obviously, we're already, rehashing all that stuff. But if there is one thing you can give it credit for, if this is the kind of thing you're looking for, this movie way, way ups the gross out factor. This movie, like, Child's Play had some kills in it, like the electric shock and all that, and, like, the stabbing with the scalpel or whatever. Child's Play 2 is fucking disgusting. This movie is gross as fuck. Mainly in the climax, but periodically throughout it. And what's weird is I say it ups the gross out factor, but then we also have scenes like the teacher played by Beth Grant. Because obviously the teacher is always going to be some headmistress type that locks him in the classroom and is overbearing, because you have to have him dealing with the absolute worst adults of all time when he's trying to convince them of the most inconceivable possibility that there might be a killer doll terrorizing people and he's getting blamed for it. So all the adults are going to be dicks, naturally. So Chucky beats her to death. He stabs her with, it looked like a ball pump or something. But her death seems to come about with him beating her to death. What does he beat her to death with? A yardstick? I don't know how hard he's hitting her. He's got those tiny little arms. Anyway, that's one factor. I'm having trouble imagining somebody getting beaten to death.
I've been hit with
a yardstick.
I've had a yardstick broken over my back before. I have no idea how you can get beaten to death with one.
Didn't kids get hit with them back in the day in school?
Yeah, there were switches.
Yeah. Apparently he beat her to death with one.
How?
I don't know.
Did he hit her in the head?
We only see it through a window. We see it go like up and down in the window and she's screaming. So maybe the stab ended up killing her.
Possibly.
And he was just like whacking her with it. But I think we're supposed to assume he just beats her to death with a yardstick.
That like jagged edge, maybe, potentially.
He can't have much force in those arms. Unless we're supposed to assume he has Brad Dourif's strength in a tiny body.
That makes sense.
Maybe.
Even though they've never really gone into that.
Well, they keep talking about how he's always becoming human the more he's in the body. Maybe the more he becomes human, the more he gets like his real strength back.
Possibly.
I guess. Well, I guess he'd have to have it or else he couldn't stab people. The first kill in the franchise is the hit with the hammer. He'd have to have strength to do that. No, that's never really covered. Because otherwise his arm's just made of plastic. So I'd honestly never thought about it that much until now. But we'll just assume he has Brad Dourif's strength in his little body.
That works.
But then there's the stuff like... there are some more comedic moments in it. One of my personal favorite lines is... when he's with Greg Jerwin and they're pulling into the parking lot, and he's just in like a normal car, and you hear Chucky's voice say, "Park this piece of shit!" And this is the first one. This is the movie that started off Chucky flipping people off. Chucky flips somebody off in this movie, and then he does it again in every movie after this, at least once. So it's like this one was the tip of the iceberg for that. So it seems like in every movie, kind of starts a trend that continued for the rest of the movies after it, and that's kind of what this one started. But yes, like I said, this one really, really amps up the gross out factor. Mainly the scene in the factory, the final scene. When, like, he's turning human, so he bleeds now. So he, like, gets his hand caught under that gate and just rips his hand off at the wrist and then takes the handle off of his knife and shoves the blade down inside his arm and uses that as a weapon. And then the whole him melting thing, and then it's a fucking gross climax. There's the dude that gets the eyes, the machine that puts the eyes into the dolls goes through the dude's own eyes. It's all fucked up and really, really gross. But it's a sequel, so it went to, shoot up what people mostly came here for, and that's pretty much what it did. It's also worth noting before I change movies. Did you ever notice this is one of the movies that was always in Jerry's apartment in Seinfeld?
Of course.
It was one of the videos in the back. I was like, that's an interesting choice. I mean, he said he was a fan of, like, the Omen series, but he never brought this up except for it just hanging out back. And it's only this one. I don't know what his... I just always associate this movie with that now. It was always back there.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to The Omen, you will recall that The Omen 2... they weren't sure what to do with the storyline, so they were like, let's send Damien to military school. So Child's Play 3 was like, we can send Andy to military school. So that's what they did. Child's Play 3 is Andy in military school, and Chucky still finds him. But Alex Vincent finally... Andy is going to grow up now, and now he's Justin Whalen. And so... And this is, yeah. This one gets a lot of hate, and I get it. But I don't mind it too much. I don't really mind any of these too much. It's just some of them get a little more ridiculous than the others. And that's, especially when you see how dark the first one was. But once again, a pretty cool opening. Though we do get the idea that, apparently the way the soul is traveling now is through the blood. Because, like, this starts with the fucking gross toy factory, where Chucky's been exploded and just kind of in this bloody heap of a toxic mess. And it picks him up, and they're basically going to rebuild him again by making the plastic. But the blood that's dripping off of his former body drips into the mixture that makes the plastic. And I guess that's how he comes back. It's a lot better than, say, the dog pissing fire in Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Remember that? So, now, if it was, this one is one where, it started to get very horror movie-y. This is kind of the one, like, the first two didn't really do this, but this is one that's very much a victim of, the score being jump scares. Happens a lot in this one. And usually for no reason. But then, and as far as the characters are concerned, as if they matter too much, there is one character in this that I love that's unfortunately short-lived. But before we get to him, what was his name? I can't remember, but it's like our antagonist, basically. He's like Dotson in Major Payne, is who he is. And they build him up before we meet him. And he's like, you better watch out for that guy. He's a god around here. Yeah, they build him up like he's gonna be this big deal. And yeah, just like I said, he's like fucking Dotson in Major Payne. He's just like some dorky brown-noser. But he's like the intimidating god among these people that everyone fears. And it's like, this fucking guy? Really? A god around here? Are you fucking kidding? But no, we just have to run with that. He's like apart from Chucky, he's our main antagonist. You take it or leave it. And most people leave it. And there is, I do like that, there's a very big scene, prior to getting to the military school aspect, and that is, the president of the company that we actually meet in the second one at the very beginning. And then he acts like all cynical, and he's like, "Oh, take the doll and shove it up your ass. I'm the president," and he leaves. And he's like the big business guy that doesn't care about the murders. He gets his comeuppance in this one. It's the same actor and everything. And there's like a really long scene where we really stretch out what his death is gonna be, and like Chucky like toys with him for a long time. You know how the scene ends? Strangles him with a yo-yo.
Okay, that's cool.
I guess.
That's cool because you're not expecting it.
And because he's the president of a toy company, there's irony, of course.
There's so many other things you could think of. A yo-yo is very bizarre.
And that air freshener is strong. It like went right in here. But no, the character I do love in this, Andrew Robinson, the guy in Hellraiser, who is also the killer in Dirty Harry, is the barber, the presto you're bald guy. I fucking love that character. I really wish he was in this more. Even though Chucky does get that nice little payoff line, the presto you're dead. It's it was 1991. Give it credit. And there are some interesting things that they do here. For instance, one of the more interesting deaths in the movie, or one of the more interesting deaths in the franchise, is in this movie. And that is, obviously Chucky is a killer doll. Most people try to deny his existence when it's brought up, right?
Right.
And he goes around, he stabs people, he beats people to death, he strangles people. Anything he can do to kill you, he will do. And this is the one time in the franchise where he comes out ready to take somebody out. And at the sight of him, instead of Chucky getting to kill them, they die of a heart attack. And Chucky watches this happen and just says, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." And just watches this dude die of a heart attack just for seeing him. I actually think that's really damn funny. And I actually really like that they put that scene in there. Because there's a lot of scenes in here that don't even need to be in here. Like the death of the garbage truck guy. What is the point of the death of the garbage truck guy? There is not one. They had a garbage truck and they wanted to kill a dude with it.
Keep the body count.
I think Chucky's only vaguely responsible for that too. Oh god. But it does have there is a bit of a dated line in it. And when I say a bit, I mean a pretty dated line in it. Obviously Andy's old now, and some time has passed. So Chucky gets the option of a new body, and that is Tyler. Tyler is a little black kid. And the reason I specify his race is because Chucky says, "It's too late, Andy. I don't need you anymore. Chucky's gonna be a brother."
Oh, that's horrible.
Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun line to hear nowadays.
There were different times back then. We'll go with that.
And so we get to our climax. The climax isn't too bad. We get the first one is the paintball match, where we, I'm not even sure it works this way, but the movie wants to make it work that way, and that is the fact that, we have the red team and the blue team, and of course Chucky's in the building that is for the red team, so he takes out the, like, paintball cartridge things and replaces them with real bullets. So that when they go to play paintball, they're just fucking shooting each other for real. And that's not even the client. Okay. So Andy gets sent to military school. The whole movie pretty much takes place at the military school. We have a somewhat climax where they're shooting real bullets at each other and don't realize it with their military equipment. Where do you think the movie's climax takes place?
Back at the school?
An amusement park. Yep. They end up at an amusement park somehow.
How?
They just run there. I think he chases them there.
Okay.
And then it takes place inside this horror roller coaster. And there's a really cool moment that's really fucking disgusting, where one of the big things in the ride is a giant Grim Reaper with a giant scythe. and the scythe cuts off half of Chucky's face, and we see underneath, and it's really fucking sick. And of course, the movie eventually ends with him falling into a giant fan and being ripped to pieces. Which is why in the next movie, and from then on, Chucky's appearance changed. That you'll probably notice.
Yeah.
Yep. That is because our next movie was when the franchise kind of reinvigorated itself to life after a long break, because 1998 brought us Halloween H2O.
Yes.
Whereas, like, Halloween was 20 years ago. So we're gonna, bring back Halloween and make it bigger and better than ever. And we're gonna basically just make it a sequel to where, the good stuff left off. 1998 was also the 10th anniversary of Child's Play. And so they were like, why don't we... There's Bride of Frankenstein. There's, like, Bride of Reanimator. I think Chucky needs a bride right about now. So it all kind of lined up. And I think 7 years after Child's Play 3, they gave us Bride of Chucky.
That's the first Child's Play movie I ever watched.
Same here.
Okay.
I wasn't even aware this was part of a franchise for a long time. Probably maybe a year or so.
Weirdly enough, H2O was my first Halloween movie, too. So, yeah, we've come full circle.
And so, here we are. I lost my notes for a second. Okay, I have a bit of a... I don't know, I see things a little... I mean, I get it, but I also see things a little differently, too. Bride of Chucky is the one that's always brought up as when the series really took, like, an almost fully comedy turn. And yeah, it definitely is a horror comedy, for sure. It's self-aware out the asshole. You remember the opening scene of the movie? When, the cop goes in that's going to meet up with Tiffany, and he goes into the place where the evidence locker is that has the pieces of Chucky from the fan, and he's in an evidence locker. And what else is in this locker? Jason's mask, Freddy's glove, Michael's mask, and Leatherface's chainsaw.
I've never noticed that before.
It's one of the very first shots of the movie. They show them really fast. And of course, Chucky's remains are right in there. And that's what the guy's there for. And immediately, and this is kind of also when Universal really kind of seemed to really want to start making its thing. I remember the VHS for this had that commercial where they were remastering, like, Dracula and the Wolfman and Frankenstein and all those. Mm-hmm. And obviously Bride of Frankenstein plays a big part in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's featured very, very prominently. And sometimes dialogue is lifted. And yeah, and once again, it's very much kind of takes a much more self-aware approach. One of my personal favorite touches is that when Tiffany's bringing him back to life and doing the spell he's been doing for all the movies, she's reading it out of a Voodoo for Dummies book. And then there's also eventually a reference to Pinhead when he shoots the nails into John Ritter's face. And John Ritter's laying there with a whole bunch of nails in his face, and Chucky just kind of tilts his head and says, "That looks really familiar." And they just never say anything apart from that. Which I didn't get at the time because I hadn't seen a Hellraiser movie. Mm. Which makes it even funnier that he killed Andrew Robinson in the last movie. But anyway, and one of the great things about this is the addition of Tiffany. Like, you would think adding a crucial character into the fourth installment of a franchise would be odd. But she's kind of the whole point of the movie. She's the only one with the above title credits. And the great thing about this character, not only is the fact that Jennifer Tilly is kind of brilliant in this, but also the fact that the way that Tiffany is, like, the whole reason this is taking place, the whole reason this movie happens is because Tiffany is such a romantic. Because she's been waiting for Chucky for 10 years after he died. She's been looking for him after hearing all the news. She thinks the ring that he left behind was an engagement ring for her. And she's just been waiting for his ultimate return so she could marry him. But then, as we go on and we learn more about her character, we realize that she might be crazier than he is.
Oh, yeah.
She is completely... Well, before we even see her in the movie, she is cutting a dude's throat. So it's very clear that that's like the very opening scene of the movie, before we even see her face. And the fact that they made sure to do that, to where if they were going to bring in another character that was going to be this crucial, and basically be a counterpart to him from now on, she had to be as crazy, if not crazier, than him. And it's kind of great also that she was already crazy, clearly, but the fact that he kind of pushes her to that point even more makes it more fitting. And as I was saying, they utilize Bride of Frankenstein really well. The way she's watching it, and the way it kind of the cutting between it and the scene that's actually happening when Chucky's like coming towards her.
All right.
There is Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif do commentary on this DVD, which is beautiful. And I remember her saying something about the scene when Chucky's getting ready to kill her in the bathtub, and he's creeping through the curtain, and he has his face pressed up against it, and it sounds like the score, and it's like this really weird kind of tune kind of thing in the score as he's getting closer in. It turns out that's not the score. That's Brad Dourif just making a really weird sound. I always thought that was really cool once I realized that, because I always thought it was the score also. But apparently it's like Brad Dourif just breathing really weird. And there's a lot of really not just necessarily in regards to the horror of it, but there's just some funny moments in it in general. Like her dialogue when he screams, "Tiffany, where the fuck are you?" And she's trying to convince Jesse that she's babysitting for a kid, and she, in response to him saying that, she says, "I'm just babysitting a foul-mouthed little fucker." And the whole Martha Stewart thing. His delivery of "who the fuck is Martha Stewart" is kind of legendary. I also love after they think they've killed John Ritter, and she doesn't know what to do with the body, and his response is, "I don't know. What would Martha Stewart do?" You okay? You were gonna say something?
I remember really liking this movie when I first saw it. This was the first time I was introduced to Chucky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like doing like the good guy doll, and I remember having a My Buddy doll when I was a kid, and I got that thing the hell out of my house the second I saw this movie.
I remember because I saw this one first, when I saw Chucky in like his normal look from the first three movies, it looked weird to me because I was so used to the stitches.
The broken face and the stitches. Well, I mean, Jennifer Tilly's awesome in this movie. And obviously I know Jennifer Tilly from Moving Violations, and I have to bring that up. You
just mentioned Made in America in the last video.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I mean, she's...
Liar Liar was the year before this.
She's really good in this. I mean, and it's funny because last year at Horror Nights, they actually had a life-size Chucky and Tiffany that were in one of the scare zones. So I got to encounter Chucky and Tiffany myself, and it was really cool.
Yeah, there's a video online where this girl is interviewing Lee Wanell in some horror thing.
Right.
And they had a little Chucky doll kind of just walking down the aisle, and he had like a knife in his hand. And the woman was so terrified that she couldn't complete. She had to like hide behind him during the interview. It's like it all showed up on camera too and was posted. But she had like a nervous breakdown because of that Chucky puppet walking down the aisle.
Speaking of that, do you remember the promotion for Curse of Chucky when they had like the Chucky doll come out of the glass and like start running towards people?
I think I saw that. I also remember the WCW tie-in.
Yes, Rick Steiner. Yes,
because it was just Brad Dourif laughing, but nobody knew what it was, and then finally he like appeared, and then.
And it's funny because Rick Steiner was trying to fight him and everything, and he kept like shooting on him. It was great.
Like I said, there are multiple references to multiple movies.
Right.
I love the little reference to Mickey and Mallory because that little subplot where Jesse and Jade kind of think like Chucky and Tiffany are killing everybody, like John Ritter and the cop and all that. And because they're so unseen when they do it, and nobody obviously is going to think it's the dolls, Jesse and Jade think it's each other. I always thought that was kind of a nice plot, and then. They decide to just get married at some random chapel they pull up to, and then we get a Godfather homage with the scene with where it's cutting back and forth between the wedding and him stabbing John Ritter to death. It's very clearly an homage to the climax of The Godfather. And then there is we do get the moments where there is a couple of wee jokes in this. And like I said, this was the point to where we were getting a little lighter, sure, and people were starting to see this more as a comedy than anything. But the reason I want to go against that is, yeah, it definitely has those moments in there, for sure, but I think this movie's a lot darker than people remember. This movie still has some really, really dark shit in it. And some imagery, too. Like, that scene where she meets Bailey in the opening scene looks like... I don't even know what that is, but it looks like a place I'd see in my nightmares or something. But then there's stuff where it kind of considers the balance. Where it's the waterbed death. The waterbed death is fucking insane. And then they follow it up with the sex scene. Tiff, I'm all rubber. Apparently Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly were ad-libbing that sex dialogue, by the way.
That's great.
And yeah, and then the ending kind of gets into... Oh, it's also worth noting Alexis Arquette as well. As the... I guess he'd be the second kill in the movie, but he's probably one of the more memorable, because that freaked me the fuck out, the piercing. That made me afraid of piercings in anywhere but the ears for a while.
Strangeland. I didn't do it. That always got me.
And then, but the thing is that the finale of this movie, where it depends on how you see it. It's either really, really crazy or it's really, really ridiculous. But I kind of feel like when we get to the climax, the movie really does just go all out. And just feel like it just totally goes off the rails and just... Like I said, either you're going to think it's like... it just really depends on the person. Like, eventually, little Chucky and little Tiffany are fighting each other with full-size shovels. I understand if that sounds ridiculous on paper. But really, I do think there is definitely... Well, it does have a lot of those comedy elements in it, and it was starting to get lighter. I feel like there's still a lot of really dark moments in it that people forget about. So that for a while there, that's what I remembered it for, until I sort of got older and realized just how kind of, self-aware a lot of it is. There's the line... after they realize that Chucky's real, and he and Tiffany are basically trying to explain to them what's going on, and Chucky says, "It's a very long story. In fact, if it were a movie, it would take 3 or 4 sequels to do it justice."
Oh,
it's like he just straight up says that. It's like we're taking self-aware to a whole new level now. And of course, the ending. The ending, I don't think many people were sure they'd actually follow up on, but they did. Yes, the ending where Tiffany gives birth to what appears to be some demon doll baby with sharp teeth. And a couple years went by, we didn't hear anything. And a couple more years went by, we didn't hear anything. What was it, 2005? Does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
And sure enough, there it was. I remember the teaser trailer with the ultrasound. And then, yeah, it actually existed. Don Mancini, who's been writing the movies all the way up to this point, is also the director now. Yeah, the movie that's known for being the silliest of all of them is the one that's by the guy that's been behind it the whole time. Though it is worth noting that he said he knew what he was doing, because when he made Curse of Chucky, he said that after this, he said that Curse of Chucky was the first horror movie he directed, because he doesn't even consider Seed of Chucky a horror movie. So I think the fact that the creator says that, I think says all you need to know about the direction this movie takes. And like the full-on... Like I said, you could say a parody of itself, but I think self-aware is kind of a different thing than that. To where... But usually when you become a parody of yourself, it's unintentional. All of this is clearly intentional. Because we get to the point to where Chucky and Tiffany are actually in the movies now. Like, they're in movies about themselves. It's like it's like them being in the Stab movies, basically. And we have and you can tell immediately it's having fun with itself, because the opening scene is basically a demonic version of the opening credits of Look Who's Talking. I'm almost positive that's a direct reference. Because it's the little sperm, but they all have the little demon teeth and like the demon eyes, and it's the whole Look Who's Talking opening. And it's basically plays up, especially when you see this opening scene. it basically plays up like a comedy version of New Nightmare for Chucky. And so that's interesting in itself. And you know it's all supposed to be funny also because the plot of the movie itself is that Jennifer Tilly is playing Tiffany and also playing herself. And Jennifer Tilly desperately wants a role in a really big upcoming movie. And this big upcoming movie that's going to be a really big thing for whatever actress lands the part, Julia Roberts is likely lined up for this project. And it is a religious movie written and directed by Redman, playing himself. If it's not clear, this movie is one big joke by this point.
That just seals the deal right there.
Oh, God. And then, and there's obviously also, kind of a thing here where, it seems like a bit of a love letter to movies in general by taking place in the movie world, but also by the fact that one of the major side characters is played by John Waters. He's the paparazzi. And they actually, okay, look, I get it. There are many portions of this movie that are just dumb. Like, there's no other way to look about it. You can say self-aware all you want. There are scenes in this movie that are just dumb. When did the Made in Japan thing start? That's never happened in any other movie before. We've seen Chucky created. We know he was not made in Japan. But that's like a whole joke through the movie. And then it turns into when he fights him, and it doesn't matter. But it's Billy Boyd that does Glenn, right? Mm. Yes. Billy Boyd and not Dominic Monaghan, in case you get those two confused all the time. And they do, obviously, because his name is, Glenn, and then they do the whole gender identity thing, which was interesting for this movie, of all things to go into. And he starts going by Glenda, which, of course, is this whole Ed Wood reference. So, there's that. But I do like the whole, Jennifer Tilly especially being self-aware in the moment when Bound is referenced a couple of times. But then there's actually the moment where, we see her in a Chucky movie within a Chucky movie. And it's Jennifer Tilly as herself saying, I'm an Oscar nominee, and now I'm in these movies where I'm fucking a puppet. And it's like, there's obviously that whole... Because obviously there's a realism there, but there's... It's a movie that's really just all in good fun in regards to where they could possibly take this franchise from this point. It kind of makes you wonder how they even got back to serious territory in Curse of Chucky from this. It would only take the actual writer, director, and creator to do this in general. I keep saying creator. I think David Kirshner, the producer in all the movies, is actually Chucky's creator, and Mancini's been the writer for all the movies. So I guess technically that's like a double credit. There are a couple of scenes where that are kind of iffy, where the movie opens with two different fake outs, and that is the first one actually is a decent setup with point of view kills, which is a very interesting opening when he's like a child. Well, this is from Glenn's perspective, where a girl gets him for Christmas, and we only see him through his point of view, and he ends up killing the family. And of course, it's just a dream sequence, and we see that Glenn's actually scared all the time and doesn't really want to go towards his serial killer family roots. But then there's the scene with Jason Fleming as Santa, well, as a guy dressed as Santa that gets killed, which ends up just being on a movie set. It's really, I get the self-aware thing, and I get, like, Scream 4, many years later, kind of did the same thing, where it was just a whole bunch of fake outs until we finally got to a real kill.
Of course.
So I get it, but it's, yeah. I always like the violins thing. Like, I have not seen this movie, like, that many times. Certainly not as many times as the others. And not for a very long time. But I still find myself occasionally referencing the violins are bad line. And then there's the whole thing about, it does actually get into spoof territory, it feels like. Like, actual spoof territory. when he runs into a Britney Spears, a woman who looks like Britney Spears that's supposed to be playing the real Britney Spears that he runs off the road and kills. At that point, that kind of feels like the real turning point where it's like, this is definitely like parody now, like entirely. But it still has those moments eventually. But there is the scene. Okay, how do you one up the scene in Bride of Chucky where he and Tiffany actually have sex while they're dolls? Have a scene where Chucky jerks off. Because he needs a sample. And he's like, "Yay, Tiff, will you help me out?" And she shows him like her little doll tits. But that can't get him off, so what's he get off to? I'll give you a hint. They have a comment on the back of the case of the movie. I wonder if that's a coincidence at all. Yes, of course I'm talking about Fangoria magazine. Yes, Fangoria magazine has a comment on the back of this box that says, "Chucky's bloodiest and most twisted adventure yet. It's a wicked good time." This just also happens to be a movie containing a scene where Chucky jerks off to Fangoria magazine.
My God.
I wonder if those two things line up. I don't know. And there are some things where, there's a point in this movie, that I just thought was fucking brilliant. Maybe it seems obvious. It probably is. And I'm sure a lot of people shrugged it off and said, "Oh my God, you're trying way too hard." When I saw this scene the first time, I was like, "Oh my God, that is amazing." And because they have so much build up to it. It's the same, where it's finally getting to the end, and, Chucky is chasing Glenn, and he's got an axe. And of course, his dad's gone crazy. His dad's a killer now, and he's smashing through a door with an axe. And we get that moment where Chucky peeks his head in through the door, and what's he gonna say? What is this built up to him saying this whole time? But he just stops and he says, "I can't think of a thing to say right now." And he never says it. I really, really love that payoff so much, because it's so, you can hear him saying the line in your head, and then he just stops and says, "I can't think of anything in this moment." I'm really, really glad they went with that. That's amazing. But yeah, there are some legitimately really dumb moments, sure. There's some really good kills in it, though. The John Waters scene with the acid is sick. The decapitation is kind of cool. Redman's steaming intestine falling on the floor is kind of cool. But yeah, it basically is a full-on comedy at this point. There's the weird subplot with Jennifer Tilly's driver, where he's like trying to confess his love to her, and then he like does with his dying breath. And it's like, well, that's a little too serious for this movie, isn't it? Where the fuck did that come from? But apart from that, yeah, it's fine. I don't have a copy of Curse of Chucky yet, but I wasn't really going to go into it too much because I already did a full review of it when it came out. That was like a few years ago, but still, I was just going to touch on it quickly. I do really like how Mancini did go back to kind of the horror roots, and it does take itself a lot more seriously. The kills aren't near as memorable, or anything. Like, I can hardly remember it. I remember the eye and, like, the car wreck. That's about it. I remember it being really well shot, too, especially for a movie like this. And that reveal where Chucky looks normal again, but he's actually just hiding his scars under, like, makeup. And the fact that we actually see Brad Dourif in person playing Charles Lee Reagan, I thought was really, really cool. And I thought it was kind of a nice return to form. And that post-credit scene is, like, everything we ever wanted. That is, like... They seriously better be done after the post-credit scene of Curse of Chucky, because there is no better way to end this franchise. Like, that is absolutely... Just stop right there. That is absolutely perfect to end that way. So yes, that's what the Child's Play franchise was like. So let's kind of delve into Leprechaun here. This shouldn't take as long, because they're the Leprechaun movies. I'm not sure I know anybody that enjoys these unironically. So anyway, it begins with this very disjointed opening, where the dude somehow got the Leprechaun's gold. I don't really know how. I'm not sure it's explained much. but he has the Leprechaun's gold, so the Leprechaun comes after him. And he somehow knocks the Leprechaun out. And puts him under a box. And he just puts a four-leaf clover on the box and keeps him prisoner there for 10 years, I think it is. That's it. And it feels very disjointed. It's like, who is this person? How did he get the gold? Why did the Leprechaun go down so easily? What is going on in this scene? But it doesn't matter because we cut ahead 10 years and we meet Jennifer Aniston. When did Friends start? Because this is 93.
Alright.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out if she was famous yet or not at all.
I don't think so.
It
was the next year. It was 94.
Oh, okay. So this was basically our first glimpse of her, really. Yes. Okay. So, and eventually she shows up, and Mark Holton, who played Francis in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, is here. The kid from Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead is here. There's another guy in there, and eventually they're going to be terrorized by the Leprechaun when he breaks out of the crate. And once again, it's one of those, nobody's going to believe it's a leprechaun, so the body's just going to pile up while everybody shrugs it off. And it's basically, please, for the love of God, I'm going to assume this is at least supposed to be somewhat of a comedy.
I'd say
because even the original tends to be played up. Like, he's typically listed as one of the horror icons. And considering how much Warwick Davis put into this role, whether the movies suck ass or not, for Warwick Davis' sake, let's say Leprechaun's a horror icon. But he is typically mentioned, isn't he?
That's never been featured in Halloween Horror Nights before, though.
But even so, he's typically he's mentioned in the lineup usually.
It's very low in the lineup.
When you go through all that, yeah.
Somewhat.
I don't know. I'd say he's probably somewhere in the Pinhead area because Pinhead doesn't really do a whole lot. So
no, but he does have a huge fan base. We will tear
your soul apart. That's pretty much all he does.
Nobody's will be doing that soon.
And anyway, so the movie goes on for a while, and pretty much every song on the soundtrack has the words four-leaf clover in it. And then the Leprechaun starts killing people in some bizarre ways while driving around on his little tricycle. Okay, so, and when it's not a tricycle, it's a little go-kart. And when it's not a little go-kart, believe it or not, the motherfucker wears skates at one point. This is all the first movie. Typically in the first movies, you're all dark and shit, and then you get stupid in the later movies. Leprechaun wasted no time getting to that point. This feels like there's some really serious horror movie out there about a leprechaun, and this is like the 7th movie in that franchise, is what it feels like. Because I think his tricycle even has a little bell on it.
It does.
Okay, because that just adds to the bell adds a whole new stupidity to the tricycle than there already was.
I remember watching this on Action pay-per-view.
Okay, remember what the go-kart did?
No.
Okay, they're in the truck. They're like, oh, we'll get in the truck. We'll avoid him this way. And he just kind of terrorizes them from outside. It turns into Cujo with a leprechaun. They just hide in the car. So he gets in his little go-kart, and he tries up. This is a truck, man. This is a truck.
Right.
And the go-kart comes up, and he hits it from the side, and the truck flips and rolls. And that's how he gets them out of the truck. This is the movie we're dealing with. This is the first movie in this franchise. They get dumber than this.
Yeah, very much so.
Honestly, though, okay, as far as scary is concerned, okay, maybe if you don't care for gore, the scene where he kills the dude with the pogo stick, maybe that'll get to you. Even though he's like saying little leprechaun-y shit as he does it. And maybe if you don't know what you're in for, maybe the first time you see his face might be a little startling.
Yeah, I remember that.
But then you get into stuff like, the scene where he's chasing the cop. It's not particularly scary, but it at least feels like a horror movie. And then there's the moment where his little hand comes through the phone, and it's like, well, that's a nice little, we saw a Nightmare on Elm Street, so here's this. Okay, it is a little, okay, fine. It's a little funny to me that, his need to kill them is always interrupted by the fact that he must clean shoes. He must, every shoe must be shined that is in front of him, so they just throw fucking shoes at him and they distract him by him having to shine them. This only is in this movie, though. That never comes back in the rest of the franchise.
I didn't realize how asinine that was.
It's like, he can't do that all the time, can he? That's too easy. But then there is the thing where it's, okay, look. If there's one problem this movie actually has for me, it's, you think about all this stupid stuff. You think about the tricycle and the skates. And, like, the fact that it's a leprechaun and that he rhymes and shit while he kills people with pogo sticks. Honestly, this movie is a lot more boring than you're probably expecting it to be when you go into it. There are a lot of stretches in this movie that are boring as shit. And sometimes he's even in those scenes. That's not good at all. I don't even know how you do that. But I feel like that's honestly one of its main problems, apart from the fact that it really just doesn't seem to... I seriously can't figure out if it's supposed to be scary or not. Because it really never is. Ever. But when it gets so incredibly stupid, even if it's on purpose, I don't know, it's still pretty stupid. But, you know, whatever. But then there is, and there's stuff like, there are multiple mentions of Lucky Charms in the movie. There's that line. The fuck you, Lucky Charms line. And then there's the moment where, I think Mark Holden's character even makes a reference to the cereal Lucky Charms. But later in the movie, when he's going through the cabinets, there is a box of Lucky Clovers. Where it's like the cereal of, we couldn't really afford the product placement for Lucky Charms, so it's Lucky Clovers. It's like, you referenced Lucky Charms multiple times in the movie. It exists in this universe. You can put it in the movie. But no. Lucky Clovers, I guess. So that just seemed a little unbalanced. It's another one of those movies where only when it's convenient to the plot, a car won't start. Just for no reason. Batteries will die for no reason. Just because. Characters will call up. I mean, I know the whole point is that Ozzy's an idiot. But I mean, still, it's a movie where we have to waste time with characters calling up the police and saying there's a leprechaun attacking. And we know how that's going to play out. Okay. But apart from all that, obviously there's some serious guilty pleasure territory going on here. I've seen this movie maybe 4 times. That's probably the most times I've seen a movie this dumb. Probably. Because I think it's just a nostalgia thing. To where this was like that time where I was just getting into horror movies, so we'd go to the video store and I would get one of all the franchises and go through all the franchises, and this was one of those. So maybe it always brings me back to that time when I see these movies. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I've got to be getting out of here, so I'm going to go through the sequels now real quick, which won't take long at all, because Leprechaun 2 is nothing but filler. I swear. There is nothing to Leprechaun 2 whatsoever. It is 85 minutes long. 85 minutes. And there is so much filler in it. There's the guy's Uncle Morty. Is a major character in the movie, sure. But we spend like 20 minutes introducing Uncle Morty. And the fact that he's the crazy drunk guy. Yeah, it's like a whole long leprechaun-less scene introducing Uncle Morty. And then there's all the time spent with the tourists, one of which is Clint Howard. And we do this whole thing where we meet the tourists, and then there's the whole Uncle Morty scene, and then finally he's like, okay, I'll do the tour. And then he's like, no, okay, I'll do the tour. And he's like, okay, this goes on forever. And he's like, okay, I'll do the tour. And so he does the tour with the tourists. And the tourists are back here, and they just look ripe for being killed by a leprechaun. Like, this movie's been on for 25 minutes. There's only about an hour left. Let's get to the leprechaun now. Come on. Eventually, the tourists are just gone. The tour ends, and the tourists are gone. We spend, like, half an hour with the tourists, and they have no point.
Oh, wow.
No point at all. It's like, they at least got Clint Howard. At least kill Clint Howard. You have a face people know. At least make him a victim or something. Don't just make him leave the movie after he's been sitting here for half an hour. And then, of course, we avoid this altogether. We have been getting to know characters for the entire first half hour. Who do you think the first victim of the Leprechaun is? Someone we're just meeting.
Of course.
It's the homeless dude with the gold tooth. He doesn't kill him, but he does rip the tooth out. So he's just slacking on the kills here. And then I think this is the one that starts in like the medieval times. And he kills the dude, and then there's the daughter. And like the curse and shit. So like half this movie is just the Leprechaun running around, and then the guy kind of running around trying to save the girl that's in the Leprechaun's little dungeon. Little Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 dungeon. And there's just so much time spent on not a whole lot in this movie. And then the kills, like I said, are totally random. Michael McDonald is one of the kills. And he's introduced in a scene. He's, like the flamboyant waiter that's, of course he is.
Yeah.
And he's very condescending to the Leprechaun.
That's a mistake.
So the Leprechaun, like, melts his face with coffee or something. And then another recognizable face that shows up, and this is Tony Cox. Tony Cox is there for the fake out, where he thinks the Leprechaun's in the room, but it's just Tony Cox in a costume. So there's that. There's a drinking competition that the Leprechaun gets in. But yeah, the second movie in the franchise, we have the Leprechaun and fucking drinking contests. It's like, that's at least 5 or 6. Come on, people. And of course, there's a Freaks reference, obviously. I'm kind of surprised it took till the second movie to get to a Freaks reference. Because it's the whole, all the other leprechauns in the bar saying one of us to him. There's that. And it kind of starts to basically make up the rules as it goes. But it's, yeah, it just kind of, this is one of those ones where it kind of keeps changing the game. Here's another thing it does. You'll notice the whole Leprechaun franchise, I think every single one, the Leprechaun is defeated. And then, in the next movie, he's just back. No explanation, no resurrection, nothing. It's just like nothing ever happened. Like the movie before it never had a climax. And this felt like the time where they really kind of said, fuck it to all our surroundings and just started making up the rules as they went. And that's just, I mean, I know you could say, it's a Leprechaun movie, but still, it also gets very tiresome because, like, 95% of Warwick Davis's lines in this movie are, "I want me gold." Just over and over and over again. And he even says it, he actually says in the movie, "You may think this line is getting old, but I want me gold." It's like, they even know. Maybe that was Warwick Davis ad-libbing. It's like, I only have, like, one line in this movie.
Makes sense.
And I think he might be defeated. I can't remember for sure. The third movie doesn't care. So the third movie begins. We go right into the third movie, where he ends up in Las Vegas. But now, remember the brother line in Child's Play 3? Get a load of this one. He goes into a shop, and of course, because it's a shop, there's an Indian clerk. And doing that thing, so the Leprechaun jumps on him, bites his ear, and what's he say? "I love Indian food." Oh, God. Yep, the 90s. Yeah. So, there's a lot, there's so many Elm Street rip-offs in this one. You wouldn't believe. The Vegas background is not used as much as you would probably hope it is. Though there is the one, like, the biggest kill in the movie is a Vegas-themed one, and it's in, like, the last 10 minutes of the movie, which is, of course, it's probably one of the more famous deaths in the franchise, actually, when the magician's been doing it the whole time, and the magician's always been there. So finally, he makes the magician part of his own trick, and puts the magician in the box, and saws the box in half, and, of course, pulls it apart, and it's not a trick. and it's really fucking gross. That's probably one of the more popular kills the Leprechaun ever did in the whole franchise.
Pretty sure I've seen that. Pretty sure I've seen that.
What, that scene?
Yeah.
Okay, get a load of this. Our hero in Leprechaun 3. Our hero in Leprechaun 3 is played by an actor named John Gatins. If you're a movie fan, does that name sound familiar?
Yes.
John Gatins is the Oscar-nominated screenwriter of Flight. The same guy. The guy that got an Oscar nomination for writing Flight is the main character in Leprechaun 3. Oh, I think he also wrote, like, Coach Carter or something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, a lot of Elm Street ripoffs. Hardly any utilization of anything. The characters don't matter. The characters don't matter so much. There are scenes where characters encounter the Leprechaun, and the Leprechaun will do something to them, and then that character just goes through the rest of the movie like nothing ever happened. It's like, are the makers of this movie even paying attention? Because it really does not feel like it. And the characters themselves are more uninteresting than usual. In a Leprechaun movie, that is saying something. This is the series that made us spend half an hour with tourists that didn't amount to anything. The characters in Leprechaun 3 are about as uninteresting as they get. And it's, they changed it up a little bit. They changed it up. He's not looking for his gold anymore. He's looking for one piece of it. So now instead of saying, I want me gold through the whole movie, he's saying, I want me shilling through the whole movie. Really changing up the dialogue here, aren't they?
Good lord.
Oh, God. That was basically, okay. The writers for this movie had to have gotten the easiest paychecks of their lives writing this. They would have to be. They watched some Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and they put, I want me shilling every time the Leprechaun appeared. It's just that easy. And that's about it. It leaves hardly any impression whatsoever. There's the robot woman. What the fuck was that? Why? It doesn't matter. Nothing matters in Leprechaun 3. Do you know why? Because then he went to fucking space.
Yeah.
How did he end up in space? Well, something about an alien princess.
Yep.
Basically continuing the plot of the second movie, where he's trying to get married, so he can be a king. He can be like an alien king. Your guess is as good as mine. But then, some futuristic, the cast of aliens, the movie's trying to be aliens, basically trying to set it up that way. They come in, and they take the alien princess, and they put her on their ship, and they fly off with her. So the Leprechaun has to get on the ship and kill them all so that he can get the princess for himself and become the king of whatever planet she's from. No explanation, no reference to anything that he was just in Las Vegas or died a couple of times. It doesn't matter at all. He's just in space now. And when this movie ends and we go to the next one, he will just not be in space and that'll never be mentioned. This one ends with him being projected into space. That's how it ends. He's in space, and he blows up. And they make a 2001 reference with his leg flying through the air, like the bone, and they play, like, a ripoff of the theme. Then he's just in the hood in the next movie. But before we get to the hood, it's not long at all before we get stereotypes whatsoever. Not stereotypes, but really, really vague characters. That's what I'm looking for. But we'll get into stereotypes later, don't worry. Really, really vague characters that only exist to die, basically. There are very, very uninteresting versions of the characters in Aliens, which is really funny that Aliens seems to be their main influence here. Because you know who else went to space, like, right before this, that this movie feels exactly like?
Jason.
The fucking Critters. Critters 4 took place in space.
What?
And it's like this movie is like an exact replica of Critters 4. It's just the Leprechaun instead of Critters. No, Jason went to space Jason went to space in like 2001.
Yeah.
And this was 1997, it says on the back here. And obviously, they're basically trying to reference a lot of movies. Like I said, I think they're trying to be aliens. It feels more like Critters 4. There's a character that's kind of like the robots in the alien movies, like Ian Holm and Lance Henriksen. Who, for a while there, he's the guy they're taking orders from, and he's just like a mugging head on a screen from a very over-the-top actor who I can't identify. Who eventually turns into a giant spider scorpion concoction. I don't know. And then, for a while there, the Leprechaun's not even in this movie. He's just hanging out in the shadows while everybody else is doing shit. Well, all this other weird shit is happening. There is a scene in this movie where the Leprechaun flies out of a dude's dick. Like in full. Like he's not small and then flies out of the dick and then he's the Leprechaun. He's like the Leprechaun. And he just comes out of a dude's dick. And then like 2 seconds after this happens, he's doing a John Wayne impression. I couldn't tell you why. I thought we hit a series low when he did an Elvis impression in the third movie. But nope. Nope, there's a John Wayne impression right after he's just flown out of some dude's dick. Yeah. So, the pacing is way off too. This movie's only an hour and a half. Leprechaun 4 feels fucking long. It feels so long. And it just seems like it goes and goes and goes. And then remember when I was talking about those kind of really, really vague characters. Like one of the characters is one of those sergeants with like a metal skull sticking out of his skin. Well, just from out of nowhere in this movie, a girl falls to her death. And it's treated real serious. Like, all the characters get really sad, and it's supposed to be like this really, really sad moment. And they're like, we're going to avenge her and kill the Leprechaun now. I don't even remember who that girl was. I don't know. So as you can see, there's a scene where the Leprechaun taunts them by cutting off his fingers. This movie will not stay the fuck away from Elm Street. It just keeps going back for more until it was going to take that whole franchise. I'm surprised a dog pissing fire bringing him back to life is not what happened in this one. Oh, God. And it eventually gets very, very cartoon. Well, as far as cartoons in general, the space effects in general look like an animated computer game or something. But then as far as cartooning in general, there's actually a scene where a dude gets his head crushed by, like, a metal plate of sorts. And when it comes back down, Wile E. Coyote style, the dude's head is in the shape of what just crushed him. It's... I don't know what was on anybody's mind when they made this. I believe the same guy that did this one's the guy that did 3, which is a bit odd. Because there's... I don't know. It doesn't matter. Leprechaun 4 in space does not really matter. This is the one where he gets really, really big, though. So it's, like, eventually he grows for a reason I can't remember, to where he's huge, but that's when he gets blown out into space. But don't worry, because he comes back anyway. Yeah. We have reached Leprechaun in the Hood. Where Warwick Davis is the above the title credit on all of them. But now he shares it. Warwick Davis is above the title co-star is now Ice-T. And Ice-T plays a guy named, Mac Daddy Onassis. Yep. Well, for starters, Ice-T becomes really rich and famous because he steals the Leprechaun's magic flute. And I gotta tell ya, I don't know. You can say what you will about Leprechaun in the Hood, but when Ice-T is face-to-face with the Leprechaun, and he's got an afro, and he proceeds to pull weapons out of his afro to fight the Leprechaun with.
Oh my god.
I don't know, that's kind of amazing. To see him just pull a knife out of his afro and then pull like a little club out afterwards. And he gets all irate when he can't find anymore and he's stuck. But eventually he is able to trap the Leprechaun, steal his flute, and get rich. That's how Leprechaun in the Hood starts. It's very, very. It feels a little like the opening of Kazam, honestly. But then it continues, and yep, this is pretty much exactly the kind of movie you think it is. Yep. This is a movie where the Leprechaun... Remember when I said it only took the second movie for the Leprechaun to start drinking? Yep. Of course the Leprechaun is smoking weed now.
Did I see him, like, in a dice game?
Hmm?
Don't I see him, like, playing dice in, like, a street?
Well, most likely.
I'm pretty sure I saw that in the trailer.
But then that actually kind of comes to an interesting plot point when it comes time to stop him. So they put 4-leaf clovers in his weed. That's almost clever.
That's unique.
But then, but there's stuff in there like, okay. So this Leprechaun, he sees murder a dude. And the Leprechaun is clearly dangerous and the reason behind all of his power. And he manages to freeze the Leprechaun. And uses all of this to get rich. I don't know. Is it really smart to keep the Leprechaun in your office?
No.
I was just wondering if anybody else was with me on that. He is in a glass case. Does that help?
So are dolls in the Conjuring movies, but that doesn't last.
And there is, you know what actually shows up in this movie a lot is there's a sound that kind of plays in scenes every now and then. I don't know. I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it's the same sound we hear every time we see the Indian in Wayne's World 2. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's
like,
great.
That's kind of an unmistakable sound. And it feels it was straight to video, but it feels very TV movie. Like straight to video is still a movie. Like it's not made for TV. It is technically just a movie. But there's still fade outs in it. Like as if they're anticipating commercial breaks. But I'm gonna be honest with you. This is probably my favorite one in the franchise. Because there's, like, I was talking about that guilty pleasure in the first movie, kind of. I don't know. I actually feel legitimately entertained when I watch Leprechaun in the Hood. Just because the concept itself just kind of lends itself to that. But the way they actually go about it, and the fact that they pretty much deliver on exactly what you think it is, yet somehow make it so entertaining, I don't know. I mean, it's not a good movie at all. But it's entertaining as fuck. Really. Even though, I mean, okay, I suppose we do reach a low point when, the final sequence of the movie. What else would be the final sequence of the movie but the Leprechaun rapping? I know, it's soul-crushing. I get it. But it happened. It is real life. It is in existence, and it's out there, and we have to deal with it. But the movie still is, like, really, really entertaining to me. I can't really explain it to you. I think it's just because it takes something so incredibly dumb. Like, it really seemed to finally, truly embrace the stupidity of it all. And just really went for it. And I don't know, I just kind of get really entertained by it. I wish I could say the same about when he went back to the Hood. It's Leprechaun in the Hood, but it's to and then the THA for the sequel. Yes. Now you want to get into your stereotypes. Yeah, immediately. All the characters. Just stereotypes out the asshole. The main character is a hairdresser in a beauty salon. And given our setting, you can just imagine stereotypes galore. Just everywhere. But honestly, that does not really change the fact that this movie, really, all in all, is just totally pointless. After Leprechaun in the Hood, there is no reason for Back to the Hood whatsoever. It has nothing to offer whatsoever. A lot of the time, it's repeating the same shit. Like, there is a scene in the first In the Hood when his eye is accidentally removed by the guy's, like, blind grandma or something. He gets his eye removed again in Back to the Hood. But then we go all the way back. Remember in the second movie when I talked about him ripping out the gold tooth of the homeless guy?
Right.
Guess what? Somebody gets their gold tooth ripped out again. and it's just all rehashing. And over half the movie is just them beating the fuck out of him. And then him chasing them around. I think this is the one with the massage scene. That did not need to happen. Nobody needed to see that. Ever. And where the leprechaun goes in and gives the woman a massage, and she doesn't pick up on the fact that he's fucking leprechaun. When there are plenty of clues. But like I said though, and the main problem is the fact that this is basically the end.
Yeah.
We are not going to count Leprechaun Origins. That movie is not related to anything okay, she said fuck you Lucky Charms. I don't care. Leprechaun Origins is not related to anything and should never be. And I'm glad people seem to pretty much have forgotten about it.
We've talked about it too. So.
Yeah, I did that review of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, has anybody talked about it ever since?
No.
Good. And the fact that Warwick Davis had such a commitment to this. 6 movies. All of which I just went through them.
Yeah.
And he's a really good actor. This kind of commitment needs a really, really good payoff. Because you could kind of... I feel like they could sense this was going to be the last one. At least the last one for him. And there's just really... It's a very, very fucking lackluster ending. To the whole thing. Not just the ending to the movie. To the whole fucking franchise. Now, mind you, they do give him a closure ending. Like, they do give him... Like, he's actually kind of... Like, In the Hood ends with him still being around and kind of winning. But this does end with him sinking in wet cement and we never see him again. So there is closure. But the thing is this was Warwick Davis' grand finale as this character. This movie that basically rehashed everything. And it's just absolutely, totally pointless. And it's bad. There's we have the scene where he smokes weed in the hood. This one, it's a bong now, and he gets the munchies. That's a whole scene by itself that leads to nothing. And it's really, really, kind of depressing. The franchise was always not very good, but I mean, you feel like they could have ended on some big note, but no. And when you have nothing to add to a Leprechaun movie,
you're done.
You really, really fucked up. So that's what the Leprechaun franchise ended up being. Wow. I'm pretty sure Warwick Davis is done forever. Because Back to the Hood was like 2000. That was like 13 years ago, I think. So I'd say he's done. He's in, he was in, obviously he was in The Plotters there for a while, and now he's found his way back to Star Wars. I think he's in Rogue One, I believe.
I believe so.
And he was in, I think he had a small part in Force Awakens as well. Because he was he just a Ewok, or was he actually Wicket in Return of the Jedi? Because he was like 12 or 13 at the time or something. And he was one of the Ewoks. So, yeah. Okay. There we go.
So
yeah, he is Wicket. Okay.
Yeah, so without even having to say it, you're obviously choosing Child's Play.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like I said, I have such a nostalgia for Leprechaun because it takes me back to those days of going to the video store and getting them individually. I did that with Halloween and Friday the 13th and all the franchises. Nightmare.
Right.
Back when they were VHSs. It was so just thinking about it now is making me so depressed because I long for that. I long to be that age again and having video stores with VHSs in them. But now, this is what it's come to. And let's end this before I killed myself.
And we got one more horror-themed versus next week where we're going to start with the devil at the beginning of this month and we're going to end with the devil at the end of this month. So your Devil's Night versus will be devil-themed. We'll just put it that way.
But I've already filmed all that. This is the last video I have to do before you leave.
Exactly.
Such a good feeling.
Follow the network at Podcast Network on Twitter and our Facebook fan page of Podcast Network. Our Zazzle store is putting out brand new Halloween Horror Nights 26 inspired merchandise every single week. And you're going to get that throughout the rest of this month. So purchase that if you'd like. And you probably will see me around the parks if you're around. So Horror Nights content will come. Ashley will be bringing wrestling content, continuing to do that. AJ has a ton of verses that we filmed, so there's a lot of stuff still to come on that. So, that being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?
That's it.